Okay then. Hi everyone. Nice to see you here today. I'm sad that we're not doing this conversation in person, but as always, we're having to find new ways to do things at the moment, aren't we? So today we have myself. My name's Zoe Lee, and I've got Mags here as well. Do you want to say hello, Mags?
Hi, everybody.
We're just here today with Dr. Kate Harrison, and do you want to say hello?
Hello.
And we're basically going to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind, just about your job, about your experiences in the field of science, just to celebrate British Science Week. But this video will be available after British Science Week as well, so that's absolutely fine. But we just thought it'd be a nice way to get to know a scientist. All right, so we're just going to go through the questions with you, but we're just going to have a bit of a chat, so feel free to go on a tangent if you feel the need to. That's absolutely fine, so don't worry. All right then, so the first question is, well, actually, it's a bit more of a, if you'd like to just introduce yourself, what your current job role is, etc., all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so as you wonderfully introduced me, my name is Dr. Kate Harrison, and at the University of Chester at the moment, I work as a lecturer for immunology. So the immune system, I teach all things the immune system, and I also teach a bit of microbiology as well. I mostly teach the undergrads, although I also run a master's program called Infection and Immunity as well. Teaching takes up a lot of my time, but I'm also still a researcher. So at the moment, I'm trying to get into a project which looks at the role of the immune system in breastfeeding and pregnancy, and how the maternal lifestyle factors can influence the immunological components of the breast milk, so like antibodies and things like that. Before I came to Chester, I used to work in vaccine trials. So I ran the immunology side of vaccine trials for vaccines for neglected tropical diseases. So particularly a disease called chikungunya, which no one has ever heard of. Which is a good thing because it's not, it's a good thing for us in the UK because it's carried by mosquitoes. So that says that mosquitoes that carry it aren't in this country, which is great because it's a particularly nasty disease. But we were trialing just before I moved here, we were trialing a really great vaccine for it. And that was at the University of Oxford, where they're actually making the COVID vaccine now. And I've done quite a few things in my career, which we'll probably get onto in a minute, but I've worked in a few various different places. But the pervading kind of theme of it all has been viruses and immunology. That's where my passions lie.
Relevant.
Very.
At the moment. Wow. Mike, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, so you've kind of hinted on it a little bit, but how did you get where you are today?
I kind of didn't anticipate being where I am today. If you were kind of to ask 16-year-old Kate what she thought she'd be doing by the time she was, in her 30s, it probably would have been a very different answer. I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I was at high school or kind of part of the way through my college experience either. I knew I loved science. I've always been fascinated by like infectious diseases. I was a very nerdy child. Always been.
What does your child like to do? Likes to look at strange things.
Read about horrible diseases. But I didn't really know what I could do with that. And my teachers, and I did well in school, and my teachers knew that I was interested in science. So they kind of nudged me towards medicine. And I just sort of accepted it because I was like, well, I'm interested in diseases and I like watching ER. So it makes sense. And then I went on, but I was never kind of like really committed to it. I just kind of accepted it as something like my only option. And then I went on one of those MedLink weekends where you go to a university for a week in the summer and you kind of get a taste of what medical school would be like. And I hated it. I absolutely hate it. There was nothing about it that I enjoyed. I was like, this is not for me. And I came home and I said to my parents, I'm sorry you've spent quite a lot of money on that, but I can't do it. I'm not doing medicine. And then that kind of left me a bit of a loss. And I started, it was actually my mum found, she did some reading and she found some books for me about epidemiology and the virus hunters at the CDC. And I read these books and I was like, this is amazing. This is what I want to do. It was all books about like the discovery of Ebola virus and the discovery of HIV and how like new outbreaks are contained and things like that. And that's kind of when I realized that I was more interested in the diseases than the people with them. And to be fair, I've got a horrible phobia of needles, so I would have been a terrible doctor anyway. And from there, I kind of started looking into what the options available at university would be, and I hit on microbiology straight away. I was like, it's got to be microbes. I'm so interested in microbes. That's the thing for me. And so I did my undergrad at the University of Manchester, and I was really lucky there to be involved in the year in industry degree. So I spent my third year working for the Ministry of Defence down at Porton Down in Salisbury, and I can't tell you what I did there because it's classified. No, well, I had to have it partly declassified so I could submit it for my university degree. But that was incredible. That was really exciting. Working on like biodefense there, and then from there. So the really great thing about that is that I didn't have to do a master's then before I went into a PhD, because that was a year in the lab. That was kind of the same amount of experience as a master's. And then I went after my degree, I went up to Edinburgh and did my PhD there, looking at a virus called vaccinia virus, which is the vaccine for smallpox. So I spent a wonderful 4 years in Edinburgh, although very cold 4 years in Edinburgh, at the Roslin Institute there. And then when I finished my PhD there, I moved down to Oxford. But there's been, on the face of it, you could say that I've had quite a conventional kind of career path in science, because I did undergrad and then I did the PhD and then I kind of did a postdoc and then I've come here for teaching. But actually, if you dig down, it's a little bit more unusual because obviously I did, worked for the MOD for a year, which is not something that a lot of people can say that they've done. But also most PhD funding scholarships are 4 years, but mine was only for 3 years. So for the final year of my PhD, I also had to work in a chocolate shop in order to fund my degree, which was actually, all that free chocolate was fantastic for stress. And then I always so as I was finishing my PhD, I got a job as a research assistant in Oxford at the Jenner Institute, which really focuses on the development of vaccines, which is what I've kind of where my two interests meet in immunology and infectious diseases. Kind of vaccines is the middle of that. And I worked as a research assistant there until I finished my PhD and got my doctorate, and then I became a postdoc there. And I kind of initially thought that, that would be it. Research would be where I would be for the rest of my life. And then I started doing a little bit of teaching on the side. I got involved in teaching a summer school at Oxford, and it just awakened this like passion in me almost, because I've always had this passion for science. But one of the things that I've realized over the years, I did a lot of public engagement during my PhD, which was very exciting. And then doing this teaching, I realized that the thing that I love most about science is getting really excited about it, but not just that, it's getting other people really excited about it as well, and seeing that passion awaken in other people. And as you can tell, I am a talker, and I can talk all day. So kind of teaching kind of made sense to me. I was like, maybe this is what I want to do, rather than being in a lab for the rest of my life where my work has quite a small impact on people, really, in the grand scheme of things. I could be a lecturer as well and kind of awaken that passion in other people and inspire other people to go on and do amazing things as well as doing those incredible things myself. So yeah, that's how I've got to Chester, really.
Lovely. Well, you were saying that it might be it sounds a little bit like it's a straight line, but I would say that was much more of a zigzag, and it makes it a little bit more exciting to know all of the different places and the different experiences that you've had, which I'm guessing have really changed the way that you probably teach now as well, because of all of the different experiences you've had, especially in the chocolate shop. I can't believe we didn't know you when you worked in a chocolate shop. Free chocolate. But yeah, just talking about the fact that you want to awaken that passion in other people, what advice would you actually give young people thinking of a career in science? How would you get them to maybe awaken that passion inside of them?
For me, it wasn't anything that I learned in school. It wasn't, any lessons that I went to in school or college that was like, oh my gosh, this is what I love. For me, it was the kind of reading that I did in my own time. As a child, it started off definitely with horrible histories and the plague and things like that. And then I talked a little bit about kind of feeling a bit lost after I decided I didn't want to do medicine. And my mum finding these like popular science books and buying me these. And that was where I found it. That was where I found my passion. So I would say, like, don't get bogged down in what you're just learning at school and thinking, oh, this is kind of boring. Because in all honesty, at school, they don't teach you the really exciting stuff. You don't get onto the really exciting stuff until you get to university. So it's really about like kind of finding that for yourself. So you'll probably know that there's something that interests you at school a little bit more than the other topics. Like for me, it was infectious diseases. It might be plants for some people. It might be animals. But go out and find some books on that. And popular science books are fantastic because they have all the facts and all the information in them, but they're written in a way that makes them really exciting. It's not like reading a textbook at all. They're written for like the general population. And that is a really good way to kind of find. The two books were and I really recommend these for anybody that's just generally interested in diseases or viruses. But for me, the two books were Level 4 Virus Hunters of the CDC, which sounds, like super exciting, by two scientists called Susan Fisher-Hock and Joe McCormick, who were two of the leading public health scientists at the CDC during the 70s. So they were on the ground in Africa when Ebola was first discovered, when Marburg was first discovered, when HIV was first discovered. And that kind of really got me going. And then the other one was a little bit scarier, actually. The other one is called Biohazard by a scientist called Ken Alibek, who it's about the Russian bioweapons program during the Cold War. And the author Ken Alibek was actually head of the anthrax program. I think the anthrax program for years and years and years before he defected to the US and the UK in the early 90s. And then he wrote this book exposing everything that had gone on and all the like horrifying things that were going on. And that kind of, I guess, is what kind of sparked my want to get to the MOD and want to do a little bit of work there because of the kind of bioterrorism aspect. And I kind of you start on the surface with the stuff that sounds super exciting, like bioterrorism or, virus hunting and things like that. And then you find that the more you read about it, the more you're like, actually, all of this is exciting, even the kind of the little details and the stuff that doesn't kind of grab you on the surface, the deeper you get into it, that's where you find where your passions lie. So do some reading around, don't just rely on what you're being taught at school, like find some stuff for yourself and that's in your own time, that's where you're going to find where your passions lie and what excites you, and then just feed off that. And also that's really great for UCAS applications as well, because UCAS, universities don't want to see like, oh, I enjoyed biology at school. They want to see like, oh, I enjoyed it at school, so I went off and I did my own reading, and that's where I found out what's really exciting for me. So yeah, reading around yourself is definitely
we always want to know that extra bit of reading or the extra insight into something that you found and maybe nobody else has read recently, something that you've decided is your specific moment of really falling in love with a subject. And we do like to ask people to write about that in the personal statement. So what you've just said is really, really helpful, because who else is going to say exactly what you've just said? If you wrote that in a few sentences in a personal statement again, nobody else is going to have said that their mum have got those exact two books, are they? So it's just nice to think of that exact moment.
Exactly. And I still recommend them to my students now as like a little bit of extra fun reading. And it's so much easier than reading a textbook, and it's so much more exciting than reading a textbook as well.
You have to read a lot at university as well, so it's just the practice as well. It's not often at university you'd be reading a textbook, is it? You'd be reading things that excite you, so it's good practice as well.
Exactly.
Right. So, Kate, it sounds like you thoroughly enjoy science no matter what. But if we had to ask you, what is the favourite part of your kind of current job? What would you say?
Oh, my favourite part is my students, definitely. So I've got a really fantastic bunch of students this year. I'm teaching immunology at level 5, which is like second year, and clinical immunology at level 6, which is third year. And I was a bit nervous going into this year because obviously it's all online and it takes a while to get used to talking to a camera rather than talking to a room full of people. And quite a lot of my lectures rely on really interactive stuff as well, so that was kind of difficult to transfer over. And I was almost expecting the students not to be very engaged and I would just be talking to a screen the whole time, but they have been absolutely fantastic. And the highlight of my every single week is teaching my students. And I mean, getting to talk about the things that I enjoy is like one thing, but then when they enjoy it as well, and the questions are just coming thick and fast in the chat, and people are putting their hands up all the time on the little, like put your hands up on team thing. And half the time they're thinking of these incredible questions that I don't even know the answer to. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe I didn't think of that. That's such a good question. And for me, it's seeing that enthusiasm and that engagement and excitement in my students, and kind of knowing then that I've done a good job because I've got them thinking about it to be able to come up with these incredible questions, even the ones that I can't answer off the top of my head. I think that is the biggest part of it for me at the moment. When I can get in the lab, I really, really enjoy the lab work, and there's nothing better than getting back an incredible result in the lab that you were really, an experiment that you were kind of had all your fingers crossed was going to work, and then it does, and you're like, you get a better result than you ever could have hoped for. But obviously that's not accessible to me right now, so it's got to be the students every single time.
I love how excited you are. It's amazing. My next question was going to be about like what you actually love the most about science, but I feel like you've shared that with us, to be honest. It's the passion, it's the excitement, it's not knowing what's coming next, isn't it? So just something else to add is how do you feel being a woman in science? Is there anything you'd like to chat about that? We've been sharing quite a lot on our social media about the smashing stereotypes on British Science Week, and it's really interesting to read all of the different stereotypical stories that people are feeling like they're smashing down. How do you feel about that?
I feel very strongly about it, and particularly, that's a really great question since it was International Women's Day yesterday. I still come up across as a young kind of scientist, and I am older than I look. And I got my PhD at quite a young age. Like I was kind of mid-20s when I finished my PhD. And people used to say to me all the time, even now, still people say to me, oh, you look too young to have a PhD. You look too young to be a doctor. And so I have to kind of go up against those expectations all of the time. So it's really satisfying to me that I do know my stuff. And I've not always felt like that. Imposter syndrome did get the better of me for quite a while during my PhD and during my first postdoc. But you kind of get to a point where you're like, no, I've earned this. I worked just as hard as every other person that's gotten here. If not harder, because I bet a lot of people didn't have to do a PhD and work as a waitress in a chocolate shop at the same time for a year. I have worked so hard to get here, and I will not be dragged down, and I will not be overwritten by people's expectations and people's stereotypes. And unfortunately, you do still see it. There are, particularly with older men in my field, because it's still kind of a lot of the big scientists, the big names, are older men, and they kind of just talk over you a little bit and don't expect you to be able to come up with these answers or come up with these ideas. And it's about just standing your ground and not letting that get to you, because it used to, for sure. Like, it would be a lie for me to sit here and say, yes, I've always been completely confident and I've always known, that I have a right to be here. But I think that's something that definitely develops with age. But the earlier you can kind of grab hold of that and keep hold of that, the better. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's been really important to me is having female mentors as well. So in my last job, I had a fantastic mentor who was head of the lab that I worked in, Professor Katie Ewer, who's been working on the coronavirus vaccine as well at the moment. She was a fantastic mentor to me. And then throughout my career, I've had these incredible female scientists to look up to and to say, that's where I want to be, that's what I want to be able to do. And I'm excited to go forward and play that role for someone else. For some, it's important for me to be able to stand up in front of my students and say, this is the work that I've done, this is where I've gotten, this is how far I've gotten, and to be that inspiration for somebody else and be that support and that mentor for somebody else as well. So I'm really excited to start having my own PhD students, my own master's, like MRes students, and to be able to be that mentor for other people and to benefit other people the way that that mentorship has benefited me. So
lovely. You want to inspire everyone.
Definitely, absolutely. I think something that we've seen during the last year is that really science is so important in our daily lives. We can forget about it a lot of the time. And a lot of people they're not, they did science in school and they're just like, oh, it was boring, it wasn't for me. But science is honestly for everybody. It's just about finding that part of it that excites you, and it is so important that as many people as possible understand science and kind of can grasp hold of what those meanings are, because I just think it's going to keep it's so important in our day-to-day lives, without even thinking about it, and especially now, vaccines and things like that. And I think the more people that we as scientists can inspire, like not just the students, but also doing that public engagement and getting out there, and doing stuff like this, and kind of I've done a few interviews with Radio Merseyside as well about the coronavirus, and just kind of trying to get that message out to as many people as possible. And if you frame it in a way that makes it sound exciting and not just like the boring science that they did back in, GCSE or whatever, the more people will kind of start asking questions, and that's how we progress, I feel, as a society, is to just ask those questions and be able to get meaningful answers and be able to understand those answers. So yeah, inspire everyone. That's
Inspire everyone and get everyone to ask questions.
Yeah.
Well, you're definitely inspiring us, Kate. We're really interested, fascinated. It's just a pity we can't talk to you all day, really. But I've just got one last quick question, really. You kind of already hinted at it, but what does the future hold for you as a scientist?
Well, definitely continue with the teaching, because I do really enjoy that. What I'm starting to get into at the moment, it's been obviously put on hold for the last year because this is not actually my house. This is unfortunately just a background. I do not have access to a lab right now. Is getting my own research up and running. So everywhere, so during my PhD, during my postdoc at Oxford, I was working under somebody else and I had my own project, but it was guided by what that primary investigator, what my supervisor wanted to do, what their interests were. And now at Chester, I've got this incredible opportunity to look into my own interests and, guide my own research, which is quite a unique opportunity for someone who is usually that only comes when you are several years further into your career at bigger universities. So I've got that really, really unique opportunity at Chester. And what my colleague and I one of my colleagues and I are hoping to achieve is to start investigating the link between immunology and pregnancy a little bit deeper. So during pregnancy, because his background is in pregnancy and obviously pregnancy research, and mine is in immunology. And there are so many incredible immunological changes that go on during pregnancy and during breastfeeding that we really don't know that much about. Like there are whole unique immune cells that are developed just for pregnancy. And we really don't know about how viruses interact with the placenta and with the fetus and are able, things like Zika, that are able to cross that barrier and cause issues in the fetus. We don't know how the immune system reacts really. So that's what we're hoping to launch our research in the next couple of years. So fingers crossed, you know, that'll be a successful project and we'll get some really great answers out of that. As I said, all about asking questions. So I hope to go on asking questions for a good long while.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you for that.
Great advice as well. Go on asking questions. There you are with your PhD, doing everything that you're doing. To us, we could say, do you know what? You could stop now, Kate. You've done amazing things, but you still want to capture. Do you know what I mean? Though it's nice to see you're always learning. You always want to ask more questions, find more things out. And to be fair, science sounds like the perfect place for that because there's, like you just said, then there's still things we don't know.
Exactly. And even when we think we know it all, there's always going to be like something else. I'm never, as a scientist, you just accept that you're never going to know everything. Even in your chosen specialist field, the research is always moving and there's always new things coming out and new information. And so it never gets old, it never gets stale. And that's, I think, one of my favorite things about it is that there's always going to be more to learn. It's kind of cheesy to say, but you do literally learn something new every single day as a scientist.
Perfect. That is a perfect little cheesy thing to end on. I like it. It is. But yeah, have you got anything else to add? If not, we can finish there. It's up to you. Is there anything else you'd like to add at all, Kate? Or are you okay?
I think I'd just like to kind of double down on what I said earlier about like finding, if you're thinking about going into science as a career or as a university course, do that little bit of extra work and find what excites you, because honestly, it makes your university career so much easier because you've found that like thing that fires you up and makes you want to just fall into rabbit holes about it and like just read all day and be like, God, every single thing you read is like, that's so interesting. So just do that little bit of extra work and find what excites you, and it will just make that choice of university, it will make that choice of course so much easier because you'll know what it is that you don't have to know, you know, what your final goal is, what you want to do with your life as a whole, but just something that excites you and just something that interests you, and it honestly makes so much difference.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kate.
It's been really great chatting to you. Really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you've enjoyed it, and that just shows you love your job, that you've actually enjoyed having a Q&A thrown at you as well. You know? It's been really nice to talk to you as well. Hopefully you'll be back in the lab real soon.
Fingers crossed.
And no, fingers crossed for everyone to get back to work. Yeah, thank you very much for this today, and also thanks for being here as well, Mags.
And so, Kate, we'll look forward to seeing you on our Unibuddy chat on Friday.
Yes, I'll be there on Friday. I've got my Unibuddy account set up now, so I'm looking forward to that too.
Perfect. Yeah, so if anyone watching this now as it comes out wants to join our Q&A, and then you can ask Dr. Kate Harrison your own questions, that is on Friday the 12th of March, and it's from 3:30 till 4:30. So yeah, you'll be able to get involved in that if you are watching it when it comes out. If you're watching it the week after, I'm very sorry you've missed out, but you can still ask questions on Unibuddy anyway, to be fair, when the account's open, so that's fine. So thank you very much, and goodbye from us.
Goodbye.
Bye.